Let's go ahead and dive right in. Okay, so our second ever True Crime Military Edition. Why do I sound like that? We're going to do it on Timothy Hennis. He is the second soldier to ever be put on death row. And he is the only, as far as my research has told me, the only man to be tried 3 times for the same crime in all of American history. That is a doozy, okay? Now you guys are like, what? Well, just stick around and you'll find out. Also, if you guys could do me a favor and share. And if you want to leave a little comment, I would love it. But yes, please share. Now that I'm done being annoying, let's get into Tim's story. Okay, I put my hair down. I wasn't feeling it. Timothy! Tim for short. Let's get into it. I've had a lot of coffee today. So, we'll start here. Okay, so this story really starts out when Katie Eastburn put out an ad in their local paper selling their family dog. Now, Katie was a military spouse, and her family was getting ready to PCS with her husband, who was a member of the Air Force. They were basically getting ready to PCS overseas. So they couldn't afford to take the family dog with them. Anyone who has ever traveled or PCS'd knows that it is expensive to take animals with you. Tim actually responds to this woman's ad, and he picks up the dog, pays for the dog, no problem, not a big deal, he leaves. Now, it's assumed that they don't know each other, because that's what he's told people, but there are a few conspiracy theories we'll get into later on that. Okay, so at the time Katie puts this ad out inviting people to her house to come look at the dog, her husband is away for training in Alabama. And here's what a lot of women don't understand. Yes, you could live on post, but it's not safe. A lot of people are under this illusion that if you live on post, there's like zero crime. No, it's just as dangerous living by yourself or being by yourself on post as it is off post. I remember getting on my friends when I lived at Fort Hood village page on Facebook that they were home alone, and everyone would comment like, delete this, and they wouldn't get why. It's because you're putting yourself at risk. You're literally saying you're a young lady home alone for X amount of days. That's why we literally have OPSEC set up for a reason. A lot of women aren't aware of it until they're made aware, embarrassingly, online. But yeah, stay safe. Back to the story. So like I said, Katie's husband was away for training. She put out this ad trying to find her dog a home. He replied, picked up the dog, no problem. But 4 days later, a concerned neighbor who hadn't seen any movement from Katie's house was kind of freaking out a little bit. Katie was a very active mom. Her kids were very active. They went outside a lot. So not seeing them for 4 days was a little weird. She could also hear crying, or what she thought was crying, all the time. So she calls the MPs to come, look at it. The police show up too as well. Now, when the police showed up, they looked in the window and they could see the toddler crying. Obviously, they could hear her as well, so they decided to just break the door down since Katie wasn't answering. And as soon as they broke open that door, they could smell what they said was death in the air. If y'all can hear my kids, don't mind them. My husband is out there with them. They're being tended to. Okay, back to the story. So on scene, this is what they found. The toddler crying, alive. I believe it was Katie's youngest. She had 3 kids. Katie's youngest was found alive, unhurt. They walk into the first room and they see, I believe they found her oldest daughter, Cara, first. She had been in her bed. The blanket was up to her neck, and when you pulled it back, she had 10 stab wounds in the neck. The next one they found was Katie's youngest, Erin, and her throat had been slit so far that it almost decapitated her head. Then Katie was found, I believe, face down, obviously sexually assaulted and stabbed multiple times. So it was a very gruesome scene. Immediately, they start putting a case together, and they know from the jump, as soon as they figured out she put an ad in the local paper, they knew they had to find whoever responded to that ad. They also went door to door to see, if anyone had seen anything that night in the area. And they found a witness at like 2 or 3 a.m., 2 days after May 7th, which is when the dog was picked up. 2 days after that, they saw a man leaving Katie's house, like walking down the driveway. Blonde hair, bigger sized guy. He was wearing jeans, a cap, and an all black members only jacket, which looks kind of like this. All of that. That's what it looks like. They also tested the walls in Katie's master bathroom, and it's come to find out that someone tried, not very well, but tried to clean up the crime scene. We're gonna rewind a minute. I did a little research on this jacket, and I guess it was like super popular in the 80s. You have to remember that this went down in 1985, May of 1985. So this was actually like the style. You know, everyone had one. So just store that information, I guess. Now, another witness came forward saying that they saw a blonde-haired man, bigger set guy, using Katie's card at the ATM. I don't know when cameras were installed in ATMs, but I guess it was not this year. 1985 was not the year for that. Okay, so back to it. Now we have two people identifying basically the same person, just no name for the person, right? They both agree that he got into a smaller white car, a Chevrolet Chevette, I think. Very small car. They said that he looked funny sitting in the car because he was such a big guy and it was such a small car. So their stories compare very nicely towards each other. Basically match. Same person. Now, it takes police officers literally no time to figure out who all responded to this ad. And they just start picking people out. Right away, Tim stands out. Why does he stand out? This is Tim. That's Tim. So obviously, he matches the description. Blonde hair. You can tell he's a bigger built guy. So right away, they bring Tim in with the intentions of arresting him for this crime. They tell him, hey, we need you to come down to the station, just some routine questioning to get you out of hot water, basically. And they start fingerprinting him. They start asking him questions. They ask to do DNA. They ask to do lie detector tests. And the longer this man is sitting there, the more he's realizing, like, hey, I might be in trouble. Right away, Tim's like, look, I don't have anything to do with this. But then Tim's neighbor comes forward saying, hey, the morning after these murders were announced, Tim was in his backyard burning stuff in a barrel. And the police are like, burning things in a barrel? Well, I guess that's not that weird, but we'll check in on it. But he said he was just burning like random things. So, but after he was questioned, fingerprinted, all that good stuff, he was put in a lineup. The same man who described the man walking down the driveway of Katie's home the morning of the murders identified him in a lineup, saying, yes, that's the man I saw. Yes, that's him. They asked him 3 separate times, and every time he was like, yes, that's him. That's him. I know who I saw. The name of this last man is Cone, and he was really put through the ringer. Both lawyers tried to trick him up, which lawyers try to do that often to make sure that you're not lying on your story. But as a witness, he was put through the ringer. Not only did Cone identify Tim as the man he saw, but also identified his car. That was also said to be parked at the scene. So, not looking good for Tim, right? So we're going to fast forward to the trial. The first 2 days of the trial, they showed nothing but photos from the crime scene. They showed the little girls, the wife, how the house was left, how they tried to clean up but didn't clean up very well. Nothing but photos were shown. And they went through every detail of what was seen at the crime scene. Now, I watched a documentary, and the lawyer for Tim said that it was really hard for Tim because they didn't know if he showed emotion, is he showing that he's guilty? If he doesn't show emotion, is that showing that he is not sympathetic? So his lawyer said it was very hard for him. Okay, so at this first trial, Tim was found guilty and sentenced to death. He was found guilty on rape charges, and he is also found guilty of 3 counts of murder. See, Timothy's lawyer really believed that he didn't do this crime. Not only was there no like physical evidence linking him to it, because back then they didn't have DNA or anything, but there was like no physical evidence linking him to it. His jacket was said to have been taken to the dry cleaners, and that alone is what they rested a lot of their evidence on. They said, well, if he didn't do the crime, why would he take his jacket to the cleaners immediately after the crimes happened? Which kind of makes you look a little guilty, Tim. It does. I'm not gonna lie, it does. So Tim's lawyer basically started putting together a better case. He swears up and down they dropped the ball on the first round. There is no reason he should have got the death penalty. So like I said, Tim's lawyer thinks that there's no reason he should have got the death penalty. No reason he should have even been tried for this. That he wholeheartedly believes that him and his team dropped the ball for Tim's case. So they start doing more investigating. They start talking to more neighbors, and it's found out that a high schooler in the area who's a bigger built kid, who also has a members only jacket, likes to walk the neighborhood at night because he can't sleep at night, so he'll just be out and about at night. Well, they track down this kid and come to find out that he was walking that night and was willing to testify that he was walking that night. They check back with Cone, and Cone is sort of on the fence on what he believes now after being shown this kid. And he actually feels really, really bad and says, oh my God, I just sentenced a man to death, an innocent man to death. They go back and they check with the lady that saw him at the ATM, and the only thing she could remember from that day was him, but couldn't remember what she did that day, couldn't remember anything else. Kind of discredits her as an eyewitness. Then they go to the dry cleaners that Tim uses and ask, hey, did you use this special chemical to get blood out of Tim's jacket that day? And the man says, no. I remember him bringing in his jacket and there was no blood. So they're really building a case here. And it's obvious to Tim and his lawyers that he obviously didn't do this. There's zero evidence against him. Not only that, but they have this young man who's saying like, no, that was me. I was out walking that night. But they need a reason to appeal. So they appeal on the grounds that the crime scene photos that were shown for 2 days long inflamed the emotions of the jury. And 4 years later, he was granted a retrial. So in 1989, his retrial begins. The key witness for the ATM, that lady, says that her memory could have been influenced by the newspaper and the photos that the newspaper put out of Tim. Then it's found out that when she was first asked about seeing anyone at the ATM before she used it or after she used it, she said she didn't see anybody. And even further research showed that there was a 3-minute time difference between her transaction and Kate's debit card. So 3 minutes is a really long time to wait. And just to show everybody how long 3 minutes really could be, they sat in silence in the courtroom for 3 minutes. Some people on the jury said it was like the longest 3 minutes of their life. Then the defense hid a newspaper carrier who delivered newspapers. She said that she saw a thin white man leaving the Eastburns home. And I'll load a photo again. But this man, not thin. Right? Okay, here's a better photo. Tall, bigger build. So adding that witness in definitely helped the defense. And the fact that nobody could remember if it was the high school kid or him or this random man who is now being introduced to the scenario really helped them as well. Now at the end of this trial, no one in that jury could say for sure that he did this crime. No one could say for sure that he didn't do the crime. And you're innocent until proven guilty. So he was acquitted on all charges. And Tim's lawyer was ecstatic. They got this innocent man out of jail, and now he could return to his normal life. And that's exactly what he did. Tim went on to serve in the military. He went straight back to active duty. He served in the first Gulf War and in Somalia, steadily earning promotions. He had a son, and he became a Boy Scout leader. He retired in Lakewood, Washington in 2004, and he lived happily ever after. Yeah, psych! you thought. Y'all, I hope you were paying attention at the beginning of the story, because I said Tim is the only man to be tried 3 times for a crime in all of American history. That was only 2 trials. Now we have the 5th Amendment protecting us from double jeopardy, right? So once you're found innocent, you can't be tried again for the same crime, right? But see, in 1985 and 1989, they didn't have DNA testing, like I previously mentioned. And it was still fairly new in 2006. But in 2006, they asked Mr. Eastburn if they could reopen the case and do a little DNA testing. They might find something, they might not find anything. But he was more than open to it, because his wife's case had gone cold at this point. And if they had been in the system, then maybe they could find a match. So they do DNA testing. The semen found in Kate, and they compare the semen DNA to a couple of other DNAs, but primarily to the blood that was drawn during questioning of Tim. And to everyone's surprise, the DNA comes back as a match to Tim. Now they had a lot of problems. Like I said, the 5th Amendment protects citizens from double jeopardy. However, I feel like the government felt some kind of way. They had just been bamboozled for years by Tim. So how can they get around this double jeopardy? How can they get around this? Easy. He cannot be tried in state court, right? Because he has rights. However, he was active duty at the time of this crime, so he can be tried in military court. So this is what they do. They called him back to active duty. And as soon as he showed up to report for active duty, he was arrested on the spot, read his rights, and then sat and waited for his trial. So here's a little conspiracy theory. A lot of people think that he did not work alone. His biggest defense was that he was a family man, he had a daughter, he was married, he was a military man, he was a good man, is his defense. Now, just to give reference on how much time passed, I believe it was something like 25 years, but this picture will help. That's him up here, and that's the photo down there. Kind of see it, kind of not. Sorry, guys. But yeah, that's a lot of time passed. Now, the statute of limitations had run out on Katie's rape charge, so they had to drop that. But nonetheless, the DNA was still found. However, Tim's team says that could only prove that he had sexual relations with her. It doesn't prove that he murdered her. Basically, they're saying because of the lack of DNA and fingerprints anywhere else in the house, that just proves that he had an affair. Now, they didn't admit to him having an affair. They said it could mean that he could have had an affair. But then the other team said, well, yeah, that's because the crime scene had shown evidence of being cleaned up, wiped down, poorly, but still attempted. Captain Matthew Scott literally said, the person that slaughtered her raped her, and the person that raped her left his DNA. Pretty powerful statement. Then, in 2010, after weeks of testimony and in less than 3 hours of deliberation, the jury found Tim guilty on 3 counts of premeditated murder. He was sentenced to death and is currently still on death row at Fort Leavenworth in Kansas. Now, I know that's not a place you want to be. Don't know a lot about it, but no, it's not a place you want to be. What do you guys think? Do you guys think he worked alone? Do you think he had help? Do you think he's guilty? Do you think he's not guilty? Let me know your thoughts below. Just a tiny reminder to please share. And we're going to move on to my final thought. Final thoughts. This ish is crazy. Never have I read something and been like so confused and then watched a documentary, because there is a documentary on YouTube that you can find. It's like an hour long. But never have I watched a documentary and literally in the middle of it been like, what? Literally yelled. I yelled, what? At the TV. Like the TV was gonna respond to me and like be like, yeah, bitch, I know. It's wild. This is an insane story. I'm so glad that I looked into people on death row. I can't believe he was acquitted and then just lived his life like he did nothing wrong for like 20 years. It's insane. I'm smiling, but it's serious. This is serious. Let me know what you guys think. I need to know.